In the news tonight, the Prime Minister says small and medium-sized enterprises play a key role in developing the gross domestic product and combating poverty and unemployment. Bomb blasts killed more than 140 in the Syrian cities of Jable and Tartus. And global leaders meet in Istanbul to tackle a broken humanitarian system that has left 130 million people in need of aid. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King received an official invitation from President of Mauritania, Mohammed Ould Abdelaziz, to attend a forthcoming Arab summit slated for July in Nouakchott. The invitation was handed to Chief of the Royal Court, Faiz Tarauni, by the Mauritanian Minister of Industry, Trade and Tourism. During the meeting, Tarauni and the Mauritanian official discussed bilateral ties and affirmed the two countries' leaderships to further boost them in various domains. They also agreed to continue coordination and consultation on regional developments in order to serve Arab joint action. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour said dialogue between the public and private sectors is key to achieving comprehensive economic development. This, Mansour added, could be made through enhancing consultation and participatory approach while adopting policies that aim at improving the business environment and encouraging innovation. Mansour made the remarks at the opening of a regional conference on small and medium-sized enterprises titled Dialogue between the Private and Public Sectors, Empowering Small Enterprises. He said small and medium-sized enterprises play a key role in national economy as they have a major contribution to developing the gross domestic product, GDP, and combating poverty and unemployment. He said that these enterprises provided 50 to 60% of job opportunities at the world level and contribute to 85% of the GDP in many countries. He also pointed to soft loans offered by the Development and Employment Fund that amounted to 14 million dinars in the first 4 months of this year. Mansour also spoke about the challenges facing the national economy due to the current situation in the region, mainly the Syrian crisis and the burden of hosting 1.3 million Syrian refugees in the kingdom. The Cabinet approved the draft electoral constituency by law for the year 2016. The move follows a royal decree endorsing the elections law for 2016 that reduced the number of lower house seats from 150 to 130, of which 15 are allocated as a women's quota. Bomb blasts killed scores of people in Jable and Tartus on Syria's Mediterranean coast and wounded many others in the government-controlled territory that hosts Russian military bases. Daesh claimed responsibility for the attacks, saying it was targeting members of President Bashar al-Assad's Alawite minority. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 145 people were killed in the attacks by at least 5 suicide bombers and 2 devices planted in cars. A total of 507 new Syrian refugees from various age groups crossed into the kingdom during the last 24 hours. A military source said border guards provided the refugees with the necessary aid before transferring them to refugee camps. The Jordanian Royal Medical Services personnel also administered first aid to refugee patients through their medical centers at the borders. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi said during a visit to a military command center that Daesh in the Iraqi city of Fallujah has started to collapse. The government forces bombarded central districts in the offensive to retake the long-time terrorist stronghold on the western approaches to the capital Baghdad. A resident said some of the first direct clashes occurred in Al-Hayakil area on Fallujah's southern outskirts. British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond said as he arrived for a meeting to European Union foreign ministers in Brussels that Britain supports the Iraqi government in clearing Daesh in Fallujah operation.
This is a centre of Daesh influence that was kind of bypassed in the advance up the Euphrates Valley, and I think it shows the strength and self-confidence of the Iraqi forces that they're now going back and clearing these enclaves of Daesh activity.
Global leaders met in Istanbul to tackle a broken humanitarian system that has left 130 million people in need of aid. The two-day summit aims to develop a better response to what has called the worst humanitarian crisis since the World War II, mobilize more funds and agree to better care for displaced civilians. This report has more.
The world's first humanitarian summit kicks off in Istanbul with leaders and NGOs seeking solutions to global humanitarian crises. Government and business leaders, aid groups and donors gathered in Istanbul to try to develop a more coherent response to what UN Chief Ban Ki-moon has called the worst global humanitarian situation since World War II.
I urge you to commit to cutting half the number of internally displaced people by 2030 and to find better long-term solutions for refugees and displaced people, based on more equal sharing of responsibilities.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel called for a renewed global consensus on humanitarian principles.
We need a renewed global consensus on humanitarian principles. Actually, it is a catastrophe that we have to talk about international law being met. And still, we experience in Syria, in Yemen, and in other countries that systematically hospitals are being attacked, health centers are being destroyed, and doctors losing their lives. This is flagrantly against humanitarian principles.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey's open-door policy would not change and Ankara would continue to harbor Syrians fleeing the war-torn country. But he said his country expects a fairer sharing of this burden.
Turkey is a country hosting the most refugees in the world according to United Nations records. I am sure you are aware of how much burden it brought to us. On the other hand, Turkey did not receive the necessary contribution in this role from the international community. We expect a fairer sharing of the burden on refugee issues.
The two-day summit aims to mobilize funds and get world leaders to agree on issues ranging from how to manage displaced civilians to renewing commitments to international humanitarian law. The United Nations estimates that more than 130 million people are in the need of humanitarian assistance and that less than 20% of the $20 billion needed to fund that is covered. Hibal Atoum for the News at 10.
A group of extremist settlers stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque Al-Haram Al-Sharif compound via the Bab al-Magharba gate. The Islamic Awqaf Department in Jerusalem said that the settlers broke into the compound and provocatively toured it under the protection of the Israeli occupation forces. Meantime, Israeli occupation forces arrested 19 Palestinians in various West Bank cities. The Palestinian Prison Club said in a statement that the Israeli forces stormed the cities of Tul Karim, Jenin, Ramallah, Bethlehem and Hebron and arrested the citizens. A suicide car bombing claimed by Daesh killed at least 40 army recruits and injured 60 others in the Yemeni city of Aden. Officials said the attack occurred as the recruits lined up to enlist for military service at the home of a senior general in the Khor Maksar district of Aden. The port city serves as the temporary capital of Yemen's Saudi-backed administration while it seeks to seize back the capital Sana'a from the armed Houthi group. Local officials said a bomb planted at the gate of a nearby army base detonated afterwards, but caused no casualties. Senior Afghan Taliban figures were meeting to agree on a successor to Mullah Akhtar Mansour, the leader of the militant movement, who US President Barack Obama confirmed had been killed in an American airstrike at the weekend. The Taliban have so far made no official statement on the fate of Mansour. Obama reiterated support for the Western-backed government in Kabul and Afghan security forces and called on the Taliban to join stalled peace talks.
It has been confirmed that he is dead, and he is an individual who, as head of the Taliban, was specifically targeting U.S. personnel and troops inside of Afghanistan who are there as part of the mission that I've set to be able to maintain a counterterrorism platform and provide assistance and training to the Afghan military forces there. So this does not represent a shift in our approach. We are not re-entering the day-to-day combat operations that are currently being conducted by Afghan security forces. Our job is to help Afghanistan secure its own country, not to have our men and women in uniform engage in that fight for them.
Senior U.S. lawmakers said they supported President Barack Obama's lifting of the embargo on sales of lethal arms to Vietnam. But they promised to examine closely any transactions to ensure they comply with U.S. interests, including human rights. More in this report.
Vietnam's President Tran Dai Quang described Barack Obama's first visit to the country as the arrival of a warm spring after a cold winter. Ties between the United States and its former enemy are clearly on the mend. Obama's announced he'll fully lift the embargo on sales of lethal weapons to the country. Observers say it's part of his foreign policy aimed at countering China's growing military might. But the president says that's not the case.
The decision to lift the ban was not based on China or any other considerations. It was based on our desire to complete what has been a lengthy process of moving towards normalization with Vietnam.
Vietnam and China have opposing claims in the South China Sea. Territorial disputes have sparked clashes between their militaries. Obama's move will likely upset China.
As Vietnam's neighbour, we're willing to see Vietnam develop normal and friendly relationships with all countries, including the United States. We hope the development of such a friendly, cooperative relationship can be conducive to regional peace, stability and development.
The U.S. president says the sale of arms would depend on Vietnam's commitments to human rights and will be made on a case-by-case basis.
From Walt Disney's hand-signed Mickey Mouse doll to his animator's desk and chairs, a trove of the late animation entrepreneur's memorabilia will go up for auction next month. The auction offers a glimpse into the origins of the Mouse House. The Collecting Disney auction, held by Van Eaton Galleries on June 18th in Los Angeles, will offer more than 700 lots from the Disney archives, expected to fetch between $2 and $3 million. Other highlights from the sale include early original drawings of the first two Mickey House cartoons are expected to fetch upwards of $4,000. British media reported that Jose Mourinho would take over at Manchester United from Dutchman Van Gaal, who steered United to an extra time FA Cup final win over Crystal Palace. Mourinho was sacked by Chelsea in December after his second spell in charge of the West London club, and has also managed Porto, Inter Milan and Real Madrid, winning Europe's premier Champions League tournament with both Porto and Inter Milan. The Portuguese appointment is expected to be confirmed after he meets with senior United officials tomorrow. Britain Mark Cavendish won the final stage of the Tour of California for the third year running, outsprinting the world champion Peter Sagan. Cavendish went into the final sprint without any teammates, having burned through his lead out in the final kilometers. Peter Sagan, who finished as the Tour of California sprint champion, again had to settle for a narrow second place, while Stage 7 winner Alexander Kristoff took the third step of the podium. And finally, the weather forecast: relatively cold across many parts of the kingdom for the rest of tonight, with a chance for scattered showers in the northern and central regions. Winds will be westerly moderate to brisk. As for tomorrow, a slight drop in temperatures is expected, with a chance also for drizzles in the southern hilly areas, while winds will be westerly to northwesterly fresh, stirring dust in the Badia region. Further south, the port city of Aqaba should expect a moderate day with a high of 32 degrees, while winds will be northerly, moderate to brisk, and the sea is slightly high. Now a look at the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end it, our top stories once again. The Prime Minister says small and medium-sized enterprises play a key role in developing the gross domestic product and combating poverty and unemployment. Bomb blast killed more than 140 in the Syrian cities of Jeble and Tartus. And global leaders meet in Istanbul to tackle a broken humanitarian system that has left 130 million people in need of aid. And on this, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Thank you for watching and have a good night.